Hello and welcome to Ag PhD. I'm Brian Hefty.
And I'm Darren Hefty. Thanks for joining us. You know, today, Brian, we're going to talk about one of the things that's really confusing for guys, picking the right maturity for their crop. Now you say, wait a minute, that should be easy. They haven't moved, they're in the same geography, but wow, we went from 2 years ago where it did nothing but rain, and last year it did nothing but sunshine and heat every single day, and all of a sudden these crops that look like they're never going to make it, well, they came in really early this year. So picking maturities would be an interesting thing.
Well, we also wanted to get to fertilizing soybeans. In our opinion, that's probably the #1 yield limiting factor across the United States is inadequate fertility when it comes to soybean production. So we'll go through the details of that today.
We've got a very difficult to control weed of the week, but first, here's this week's Farm Basics.
Farm Basics is brought to you by the Liberty Link trait and Liberty herbicide from Bayer. The most reliable weed management solution, Liberty Link and Liberty herbicide are the link to efficient row crop production and sustainable weed management.
During our Farm Basics time today, we wanted to discuss banding versus broadcasting, because if you're a non-farmer, you might say, what is this? I don't know what these farmers are doing, because I see different types of machines out there for fertilizer application. Why?
Well, if you're fertilizing your lawn, you need fertilizer everywhere because there's a plant on every square inch of your yard.
Hopefully.
So you're going to, yeah, there better be at least. So you're going to broadcast the fertilizer. That means spreading it everywhere. So like on this particular field, you can certainly broadcast the fertilizer everywhere so there's an even layer of fertilizer across the whole field.
And that's the way fertility always used to be done.
However, many farmers are going to banding fertilizer, where if they're going to plant a crop, say every 30 inches, like our corn and our soybeans on our farm is planted every 30 inches. Well, why put fertilizer out in the middle? Why not put it right underneath where you're going to put that seed? There are a lot of advantages to that in terms of the crop is going to do a better job being more efficient taking that fertilizer in, and you may be able to get by using less fertilizer per acre if you're banding it.
And the main reason why is because the roots are going to be growing down, hopefully. If you have your water table down, the roots should be growing down, and when that happens, they can go right to that fertilizer band. And the way that roots work in soil, they don't just sense and know, hey, there's a bunch of fertilizer over there, I'm going to go send a bunch of roots over to get it. No. What happens is once they find a highly fertile area, then they put out a lot of roots in that area. So you can really see it. We've done studies in our own lab where if we have fertilizer here and no fertilizer over here and there are roots to both places, you'll see once the roots get into that area where there's a fair amount of fertilizer, there's a whole bunch more of expansion of root there. So anyway, my point is, if the roots are going to be intercepting that fertilizer anyway, that means there's a much better chance for recovery this coming year. And the other big reason why banding is better than broadcasting, or at least that's what a lot of universities will show, is because you have less tie-up of that fertilizer.
See, in soil, it's not just dirt. Soil is actually made up of a lot of different elements, or basically different chemistry out in that field. So when you're putting in fertilizer, like say phosphorus, for example, if you've got phosphorus fertilizer, you want that to be available for your crop. But if your soil has lots of calcium in it, as many of the soils do across our country, that calcium can easily tie the phosphorus up, making it insoluble in water and unavailable for plants. You can have all kinds of phosphorus out there, but if there's way too much calcium, that could tie the phosphorus up and not let your crop get it. So by putting that phosphorus in a concentrated band, it's kind of like having an ice cube versus having crushed ice. The crushed ice is nice, you get a quick reaction, it cools down your beverage, but it doesn't last very long. That ice cube is going to last much longer. It's just like your fertility band. If you concentrate that fertilizer, it'll last much longer, hold up much longer against the tie-up in your soil.
Yeah, but that's especially important for nutrients that have a tendency to get tied up and for immobile nutrients in soil. Whereas mobile nutrients and nutrients that don't get tied up much, like nitrogen and sulfur, those could be broadcast, and you're not going to gain a lot of efficiency if you go to a band there. So with different fertilizer products, farmers will use different methods of application.
One other thing you mentioned there, Brian, with phosphorus, it's very immobile in soils, but by deep banding it, farmers will actually place it about 8 or 10 inches below the seed. They can do that either in the fall or a spring application. They've moved that phosphorus way down deep in the soil and protected it from loss due to erosion. If farmers broadcast phosphorus fertilizer, it may only move down in the soil a 1/4 inch a year. So if you're dropping it down 10 inches in the ground where your roots are going to need it, or if you're leaving it on top of the ground, you've basically sped up nature about 40 years. So for farmers that have the equipment to deep band fertilizer, many of them are going to it just for that reason.
Well, once again, broadcasting is if you were to spread fertilizer across an entire field, and banding is if you selectively place where the fertilizer goes, and usually farmers are banding where they're going to put the rows next spring, or they could band in the spring where they're actually planting their rows of crop.
While many times when farmers are banding rather than broadcasting, they aren't doing tillage across the whole field. Part of that reason may be because they don't want to stir up our weed of the week. We'll show you what it takes to control this tough weed later in the show.
For years, FarmLogic has been the easiest and most convenient way to keep up with your farming operations. Well, it just got better. Introducing FarmPad for your phone. You always have your phone with you, so entering records as they happen is as easy as a touch of a button. Chemical database, GPS, service records, and more. When you do it on the farm, save it on your phone and it's backed up forever. Call or visit farmlogic.com for a free trial and find out why FarmLogic is the best decision tool for the farm.
Everything is better to the power of Nutrisphere N. Proven to shield against leaching, volatilization, and denitrification, Nutrisphere N Nitrogen Fertilizer Manager helps you maximize the efficiency of your nitrogen applications. In fact, research shows that in 184 corn trials, Nutrisphere N increases yields by an average of 13.2 bushels per acre. Do the math for yourself. Contact your local fertilizer dealer today and take your operation to the power of Nutrisphere N.
For lower costs and higher production, Mandaco leads with versatility unmatched. Twister is the vertical tillage unit for no-till as well as conventional tillage. Twister's ease of maintenance is forgiving in rocks and has contour conformity equaling zero downtime. Our hydraulically adjusted coulter angles make residue management easier and less costly. Spring or fall, the Mandaco Twister vertical tillage unit is the new leader. See your Mandaco dealer. Visit northcountrymarketing.biz or call 877-915-8790.
Advanced Farming Systems from Case IH helps producers be ready. Our precision farming solution is less complex and built right into our equipment. Factory integrated with open architecture, AFS works with all of your implements, no matter what color they are. And our team of dedicated specialists are here to keep you rolling 24/7, 365. The world of farming is changing. Will you be ready?
I'm ready.
Back in 1966, Advanced Drainage Systems, Inc. was the first company to start manufacturing plastic agricultural drainage pipe in the United States. And today, ADS continues our leadership with superior pipe production and service capabilities. Our roots are firmly entrenched in the agriculture industry, and we're committed to helping farmers grow their business. With 54 manufacturing plants and 24 distribution yards throughout the world, you can count on ADS and our green striped pipe to be there when you need us. Advanced Drainage Systems, the green striped pipe you can count on.
Brian, soybean yields have not kept up with corn yields in terms of the gains that they're having out in the field.
Yes, they have. They absolutely have. When you look historically at soybean yields in the United States, they're on a line just about equal to what corn is. Percentage-wise, we're seeing gains with soybeans. The genetics on soybeans, I'll tell you, have gotten dramatically better, just like they have on corn.
Well, I think our gains on soybeans have been even better than our gains on corn over the last 5 years.
On our farm.
But you look at many farmers and they say, we're struggling with this problem. And one of the reasons why is they're focusing on fertilizing the corn, exactly what that corn needs, and getting to understand, exactly what we need to do to raise the best corn. But many guys, soybeans are a second crop, and well, I fertilize the corn pretty heavy. There's got to be some carryover fertilizer out there my beans can extract. And that's not the way to look at it. Soybeans are a very important crop too, and they have a high need for nutrients. You have to fertilize your soybeans separately.
So where we want you to start today is by getting the Ag PhD fertilizer removal app for your iPhone or iPad. Download that right now and take a look at what the numbers are. Plug in 50 bushel beans or 60, or in our farm, we're trying to fertilize for 80 bushel beans. That's my yield goal on many of our farms for next year. And you know what? If we don't feed the crop, I know we can't get the yield that we're hoping for.
Well, if you don't have a smartphone or an iPad, you can still go to our website at agphd.com and click on the resources tab, and you'll find the chart that we're talking about that'll show you exactly what your soybean crop is going to remove from the soil.
But this is where we start. Before we ever even think about fertilizer, we think about what we're going to plant for next year, anything, we look at this very chart and say, okay, we have now an idea that we're going to plant soybeans in this field. Our yield goal's 80. What do we really need in terms of fertility?
All right, well, here's where we start, Brian, because you look at this chart or you look at the app and you say, whoa, 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 you say I need all kinds of nitrogen for my soybeans. I didn't think I was supposed to put nitrogen on beans. I thought they produced it themselves. Well, they will produce a good share of the nitrogen that they're going to need. The problem is, yeah, you have to have the right bacteria on your root system.
Yeah, so what we're talking about here is rhizobia bacteria, and those are naturally found in soils. But where we get really concerned is if you haven't planted soybeans on this ground before, or if you haven't planted soybeans on a regular basis, or if you've had major drought or flooding problems. So let's review real quick. 2011, major flooding.
Flood.
2012,
Drought.
major drought. Okay, so what are the odds that a lot of those bacteria have survived going into 2013? Probably not real good. So our suggestion is inoculate and maybe put some amount of nitrogen out there. Now, if you're putting a whole bunch of MAP or DAP out there, in addition to the phosphorus, you are getting some nitrogen. So on our farm, in many cases, that's enough. I'm getting 20, 30, maybe 40 pounds of nitrogen out there. If I'm going for 80 bushel beans, between that and having good bacterial activity, I should be fine.
Yeah, make sure you're inoculated. That's the key one, and it's very inexpensive to do that. Then when you look at the phosphorus and potassium needs of your soybeans, they are really high, especially that potassium number. It really shocks a lot of guys. If you're raising 60 bushel soybeans, you're actually removing 48 pounds of phosphate and 84 pounds of K2O potassium when you harvest that grain and take it off the field.
Just for the grain only removal. So that's not what it takes to raise the crop. That's just grain only removal. So when those 60 bushel beans leave the field, that 84 units of potassium and 48 units of phosphorus, that's gone forever.
And when we look at raising a 200 bushel corn crop, farmers say, well, I got to feed that corn. That really needs the nutrients. Yeah, 200 bushel corn removes 60 pounds of K2O potassium. So a 60 bushel bean crop removes a lot more.
Almost 50% more. Yeah, it's crazy. And I didn't realize this either until just a few years ago, but that's why we want you to look at the chart. If you don't understand what the crop's going to remove, it's hard to know what to fertilize with.
Then the other thing this year, coming off a flood year and then a drought year, it's never been more important or more critical to your operation to get good soil samples from your fields. Now maybe you say, I don't have it in the budget to do every single field. Well, do some of the fields at least and get an idea of what kind of carryover fertilizer you have from last year. Or if you're drastically short in something, find out what it is. Like for us on our farm, we found many of our fields over the years started to be short in potassium. We were doing a great job on the other nutrients, but potassium we were short. Well, no wonder soybean yields have been lagging because a lot of the potassium in our fields just wasn't available for our crop.
So if you're going to look at this potassium level, you've got to look at base saturation, and where we want base saturation is in the 4 to 8% level on potassium. If you're not at that level, you're gonna need more potassium for sure. I'll guarantee you, and I can prove it to you with plant tissue analysis. Your plant absolutely will not get enough potassium in it unless you've got that K range into the 4 to 8%. And you're not gonna know that unless you have a soil test done and run a base saturation test.
Okay, I've got 3 other points, Brian. First of all, micronutrients are very important for soybeans. You need to get them out there, but it's not really safe to put them in furrow for the most part. We need to put them off to the side in a 2x2
I don't know about that.
We put ours.
No, we put ours in furrow. It's just you got to keep the rate relatively low. But fortunately, you don't need a lot of micronutrients. Quart and a half of a blended micronutrient product, and you're in pretty good shape.
It can be a little risky in certain soil types, especially if it's sandy and low organic matter soil.
True.
So you do have to watch out for that. The other thing, just in general, if you want to put liquid fertilizer in the furrow, you can do that. Again, you just can't get carried away with the rates. In many cases, 3 gallons if you have a decent CEC
I'd say
in your
1
field.
or less.
No, it depends on your CEC. If you've got sandy
there's no
soil
way
again,
I'm putting that much out there.
Well, I feel very comfortable putting 3 out if I've got a CEC that's close to 20. I won't have much issue with that.
I wouldn't take that kind of risk. So you can go with Darren and be on the risky side.
It depends on what you're doing.
Be a gambler. What the heck?
I'm not using a high salt
fertilizer. It's not like we have
fertilizer.
$1,000 an acre at risk if we have a bad crop.
That's why I'm going to use something like a Pro Germinator or a Sure K that have extremely low salt content if I'm going to be in soybeans, because that seed is very, very susceptible to injury from high salt fertilizers. Finally, Brian, my last point, we've got micronutrients, we've got a little bit of fertilizer we're going to put in furrow. What about foliar apps? For the most part, guys are trying to save a crop that, man, I got a disaster out there. Maybe I can throw a little bit of fertilizer. It's not going to help you that late in the year. You've got to have a good soil program first if you're going to have any success at all from your foliar applications.
Well, the last thing I had, Darren, was in iron deficiency chlorosis soil. So in other words, when there's high pH, high salt, high nitrate, in those soils we see a lot of yellow beans, and that's where farmers are putting on high doses of products like green bean or soy green so they get more iron out there. So even though the soil isn't short on iron, it's just not available in those pH and high salt, high nitrate situations. Our other suggestion for that long term is put some tile in the ground. You'll lower your pH, you'll lower your salt levels, you'll lower your nitrate levels over time.
Well, there's certainly a lot of things we've talked about today, but with soybeans, it's important to fertilize that crop. Start by taking a look at the nutrient removal, whether it's on our nutrient removal app or whether it's right on our website. You can find those charts from the USDA on how many nutrients a soybean crop actually takes. Then you can base your fertilizer program on good soil tests, including base saturation and your nutrient removal, to find out exactly what you need.
Just to give you an idea how much this is worth, we picked up a new piece of ground this year that had been cash rented for many years, and right across the road, I'm talking literally right across the road, we fertilized it pretty well for the last 10 years now, and it's ground we've had for a long time, and we had 15 bushels more soybeans right across the road, 15 bushels more. That's the difference in fertility. That's exactly what we're talking about today, and I just cannot stress to you enough, if you're trying to raise a great soybean crop, you've got to feed the crop in order to get that yield.
If you want top yields, one other thing you need to do is control our weed of the week. Can you identify this week's weed? Hey Brian, it's Farm Guy.
What brings you to our farm?
I watch Ag PhD every week and know that you guys do a lot of field testing.
We test a lot of products here, and when something works, we use it on our farm.
Oh, like agriculture liquid fertilizers. You guys started talking about ProGerminator and SureK on the show a few years ago.
But I was skeptical.
You're always skeptical.
Should Brian be skeptical of agro-liquid fertilizers? Find out at www.farmguytv.com.
Speed, strength, and efficiency make Capello corn heads a head above the rest. Built with polymer components that exceed industry standards, Capello corn heads continue to push the boundaries for maximizing grain retention while using less energy. Visit CapelloUSA.com and learn more about Capello's state-of-the-art chopping technology that cuts cleaner, allowing your horsepower to remain where it belongs, with your combine, so you can harvest faster in all weather conditions. Add to that an amazing folding feature, and it's clear to see why Capello is a head above the rest.
With Roundup Ready Plus weed management solutions, the pluses really add up. You can count on expert advice, herbicide recommendations, plus weed control incentives for your higher-yielding seeds and advanced traits. With Roundup Ready Plus and Genuity Roundup Ready to Yield soybeans, you have the solutions you need to effectively subtract your weed problems. And that adds up to yield. For more details, visit RoundupReadyPlus.com.
Harvest season will soon be over, but don't put away your equipment until you bring it into Titan Machinery, your Case IH dealer. Take advantage of our Uptime Maintenance program. Uptime is Titan's preventative maintenance service designed to eliminate costly downtime during the short working season. Our technicians average more than 10 years of experience and use a comprehensive checklist to find problems before they slow you down. Call Titan Machinery today to schedule your Uptime service so you can spend the winter worry-free. Titan Machinery and Case IH. Better solutions.
Looking to maximize yield? Quick Roots is a microbial seed inoculant that allows the plant root to explore a greater volume of soil, the key to higher yields. Quick Roots continues to generate yield response on corn, soybeans, wheat, and more. Quick Roots is applied to the seeds so the live microorganisms go right to work, enhancing seedling vigor, increasing the uptake of certain nutrients including NPK, and expanding root volume. Maximize yield on your farm this season. Call TJ Technologies or your local dealer and get your Quick Roots today.
When Darren and I were talking about what should we discuss at Ag PhD today, I just said, you know, Darren, I've had so many farmers that I've talked to that said, I think I'm going to bump my corn maturity for next year because we've had 3 years in a row where the corn's been really dry in the fall. Yep, but do you remember what happened 4 years ago? The corn was super wet in the fall, and I'm just concerned going into 2013 that if seed is a little short, especially on early maturities, everybody's gonna bump up 5 days and we're gonna have all kinds of wet corn at the end of the year. So, I mean, how should a guy go about doing these things? What we always talk about in Ag PhD is spreading your risk. And I realize if you're a gambler and you're shooting for the home run, you want to put one good variety in, the plot winner this year. You're going to put it on all your acres. It's going to push the maturity. You're going to push everything. You can do that, but the more you gamble, the bigger your loss could potentially be. So if you spread your risk, this is just, I mean, just real simple economics. If you just spread your risk, the odds are you're not going to go broke. And that's what Dad always used to tell us.
Well, you know, Brian, it's kind of like the guys in Chicago. They're trying to outguess the weather. They're watching all the long-range forecasts, trying to think, wow, if we get rain, we're going to have a big crop, so the market's going to go down, so I should speculate this way or that way. Look, don't be a speculator. Just spread your risk out. A lot of guys say I'm going to do the 20-60-20 plan, where I have 60% be kind of the historic maturity for my area, 20% I'll push it a little bit and go with a little later, and 20% I'll push it and go with a little earlier. And you know, over the years, that's going to average out just fine. Maybe you're 25, 50, 25. I don't care what your mix is, but just kind of mix it up a little bit. Like for us on our farm, probably 95-day corn is what's going to be ideal for us year in and year out. But you know what? We'll plant some 100 or maybe 103-day corn on the late side. We'll plant some 90-day on the early side, maybe a little earlier if we get a little late in the season planting or something like that, and try and spread our risk out. And some of it you can judge by, hey, if I'm planting the first day that crop insurance will cover me, maybe I can push it a little further this year, or if I'm getting in a month later, you already know you have to back it off.
Yep, so one last comment that I guess I would make, don't look just for plot winners. Yes, it's nice to have varieties that are going to yield, but you don't know what's going to happen next year versus what happened last year. In other words, 2 years ago it was a flood, a year ago a drought. What's next year going to be? We don't know. So the odds are real slim that last year's winter is going to be next year's winter. What you do want to pick varieties for is certain disease or certain defensive characteristics. So for example, if you're concerned about Goss's wilt, you better get a Goss's wilt tolerant hybrid or you're in big trouble because we don't have any way to rescue that. Same thing with iron deficiency chlorosis or some of these other problems that you might have.
Well, or the traits that you need. If you need to have a Smart Stacks trait because you've got tremendous rootworm pressure, you better have it because there's not a whole lot of ways you can make up for that.
Yep, so there are a lot of ways, a lot of different areas where you can, you know, make concessions with your seed dealer and settle for this or that, but don't settle for defensive traits that aren't going to work for you.
One other thing you can't settle for is a patch of our Weed of the Week on your farm. We'll show you how to get it under control coming up next.
The Weed of the Week is brought to you by Mandaco.
For lower costs and higher production, Mandaco leads with versatility unmatched. Twister is the vertical tillage unit for no-till as well as conventional tillage. See your Mandaco dealer. Visit northcountrymarketing.biz or call 877-915-8790.
Our Weed of the Week is Creeping Charlie, and let me tell you, if you've got a lawn and this weed gets started, it's a bad one.
Okay, so what are you going to do, Darren? How are you going to stop it?
Well, first of all, Creeping Charlie is a perennial weed, so you're going to have tons of it out in your lawn, and that patch is just going to keep growing and growing and growing if you don't do something about it. So what you can do is a couple of things. One, you can just spray Roundup, kill your whole lawn, and start over.
That sounds like fun.
And actually, we're right here on my great-grandpa's farm, and my great-uncle, a few years back, that's exactly what he did. He had Creeping Charlie going. He said, you know what, I'm not messing around. I don't want to have to spray multiple times. I'm spraying Roundup one time at a high rate. I'm killing the whole lawn and starting over. His wife was not very happy, but he did it, and it worked pretty good. Now, the other thing you can do if you don't want to kill your lawn off, which most people don't, is just spray 2,4-D, the highest labeled rate possible, and spray it multiple times throughout the year. If you do 2 or 3 applications through your growing season, you're going to significantly knock back the Creeping Charlie, and hopefully within a couple years, you can wipe it out.
Now, we used to have pretty good luck with Super Trimec, and actually Banville sprayed in the lawn would do pretty well too. But I just want to caution you, when you're out spraying Banville, that's a little more harmful than 2,4-D. You've got to make sure you're not getting that in your eyes. Keep it off your skin as much as you can. Banville is just a more harsh product, so I personally don't recommend that for lawns, but in this case, it would be better in terms of control.
Now, we typically don't see Creeping Charlie getting out into crop fields. We have to keep it away. That's where we're kind of on the edge of a field here. If you see it on the edge of the field, wipe it out there. You can use 2,4-D in a lot of different products. Then it won't get out in your field.
The reason why it's not that tough out in fields is because of crop canopy, and that's one thing I would say in your lawn too. If you don't mow your lawn all the way down to nothing, you have a lot better chance of keeping the Creeping Charlie out.
And if you have a good fertility program, so you have good healthy grass.
Once again, our Weed of the Week is Creeping Charlie. It is a perennial weed, so it's a little bit difficult to control, but there are several herbicides you can use on your farm. That's it for our Weed of the Week, but stay tuned. Iron Talk is coming up next.
Iron Talk is brought to you by Case IH.
The world of farming is changing. From the power and versatility of Steiger and Magnum tractors to the legendary reliability of axial flow combines, Case IH can help you be ready. To learn more, visit caseih.com/be ready.
If you want to lower a high pH quickly, there is a way to do it, but how will you accomplish that on your farm? We'll show you in today's Iron Talk. If you want to lower a high pH soil very quickly, you can do it temporarily using elemental sulfur, not any kind of sulfate that you're going to put on, ammonium sulfate, calcium sulfate, no. That's not going to have that impact that you want, but elemental sulfur can. It'll only last a short period of time. So the question is, how are you going to do it? Well, we tried some this fall on our farm in a broadcast spread. We had part of a field that really had a high pH. We wanted to see if we could influence things for a short time into the growing season, so we broadcast spread some elemental sulfur, figuring our roots will get down deeper in the soil where the pH is a little more neutral in a short period of time. That may work for us, we'll find out. That was Brian's idea. Now my idea is to do some banding, and we work with a number of farmers that do use banding right behind the row. That works pretty well, and you don't have to treat so much area, so it's a lower cost to get into that. But again, you're just looking for a temporary result to have that root system in a neutral pH while it's getting established, and then as the roots grow down deeper, of course, hopefully they get into some better soil. So if you're considering fixing a high pH on your farm for just a short period of time, elemental sulfur may do the trick. You can try broadcasting like we're doing, or you can certainly band it and save a little money doing that. That's all for today's Iron Talk, and now back to the show.
You can't fill a barrel any fuller than its lowest stave, and your crops can't do any better than the nutrient that's in shortest supply. Your yield potential is only as good as the weakest nutrient in your fertilizer program. Give your crops more than just NPK. Prescription apply all the micronutrients your crop needs, each one customized for your crop's potential. MicroLink, linking yield to potential.
Advanced farming systems from Case IH helps producers be ready. Our precision farming solution is less complex and built right into our equipment. Factory integrated with open architecture, AFS works with all of your implements, no matter what color they are. And our team of dedicated specialists are here to keep you rolling 24/7, 365. The world of farming is changing. Will you be ready?
I'm ready. For years, FarmLogic has been the easiest and most convenient way to keep up with your farming operations. Well, it just got better. Introducing FarmPad for your phone. You always have your phone with you, so entering records as they happen is as easy as a touch of a button. Chemical database, GPS, service records, and more. When you do it on the farm, save it on your phone and it's backed up forever. Call or visit farmlogic.com for a free trial and find out why FarmLogic is the best decision tool for the farm.
Looking to maximize yield? Quick Roots is a microbial seed inoculant that allows the plant root to explore a greater volume of soil, the key to higher yields. Quick Roots continues to generate yield response on corn, soybeans, wheat, and more. Quick Roots is applied to the seeds so the live microorganisms go right to work, enhancing seedling vigor, increasing the uptake of certain nutrients, including NPK, and expanding root volume. Maximize yield on your farm this season. Call TJ Technologies or your local dealer and get your Quick Roots today.
Closed captioning for Ag PhD is sponsored by Norwood Sales.
Introducing the all-new Backsaver Swing Hopper Auger Mover. Backsavers have interchangeable parts which allows you easy access to move or swing your augers to fit your harvesting needs. Get yours today at Norwood Sales.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week's show, but be sure to tune in again next time for another Weed of the Week, Farm Basics Iron Talk, and a whole lot more. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for watching Ag PhD.
American ethanol is made primarily from corn. Did you realize that the type of corn used for ethanol and livestock feed is much different than the sweet corn on your dinner table? For more information, visit the Responsible Nutrient Management Foundation at rnmf.org.